A sheriff in Florida has released new body cam footage from the shooting death of Roger Fortson, a black U.S. airman in his home. The video shows officers arriving at the scene of a reported disturbance call at an apartment complex in Fort Walton Beach. The family's lawyer claimed that he was home alone at the time and that the responding deputies burst into the wrong apartment and shot the senior airman when they saw him with a gun. Law enforcement, though, however, are pushing back, saying those allegations are incorrect.
What we do know at this time is that the deputy did announce himself, not once, but twice. Mr. Fortson's comments indicate that he did acknowledge it was law enforcement at the door, and he arrived at the door with a firearm in his hand. The deputy knocked on the correct door. He did not cover the peephole or otherwise obscure its view in any way.
Now, the family says Fortson was legally entitled to have that gun in his home. The deputy is now on administrative leave, and a criminal investigation into the incident has been launched. Well, I'm going to bring in now Keith Taylor to discuss this. He's a former NYPD sergeant and the former assistant commissioner for the New York City Department of Correction. Taylor is also an adjunct assistant professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. All of those roles make you the perfect person for us to talk to right now. Even before we get into the specifics of what happened, the family says that Fortson was working for the U.S. government. He was in the U.S. military. He legally had the right to possess that weapon. What do you make of the allegations, the story from the family, just off the bat?
Well, I think it's very troubling. You have an individual who lawfully owns a gun in his home, and he believes he's under threat. And so he has his gun in his possession for the protection of himself and his family. And to have this interaction with the police that ends up with this incredible misunderstanding that results in his loss of life, that is something that investigators are going to be looking at closely to see where things went wrong. How did it get to the point where you had an armed individual inside the home and an armed individual outside the home, not understanding what each other was doing?
Yeah. And Keith, you and I have actually had conversations in cases that are very similar to this one, sadly. Talk to us about how this compares to Breonna Taylor, other cases where law enforcement shot and killed Black people inside their homes.
So one of the things that really needs to be examined when agencies are looking at their policies to make them less likely to have these kinds of fatal mistakes is to examine how they confirm that the apartment or the house that they are about to do that search warrant in is the correct one. Mm-hmm. Verifying that you have the correct place can alleviate a lot of problems, up to and including the unnecessary death of the inhabitants of those residences. So it really requires that agencies examine closely how their officers are responding, how they are able to determine that they are responding to the right place, and how they can deconflict with any lawful gun owners in their homes that are defending their residences.
According to the family, Fortson heard a knock, asked who was there, didn't have an answer, heard another knock, then went to the peephole, didn't see anybody there, and that's when he went and retrieved his firearm. I want to just say that his mother, in a press conference with Ben Crump today, was very emotional. She said, "My baby was shot up." She said that he just wanted to serve this country and serve everyone. How does the police department now conduct this investigation into what seems like a terrible tragedy?
One of the things they're going to do is look at the available evidence. Apparently, this was being FaceTime, so it was streamed live, and so they're going to try and get that information to see what that shows, in addition to any individuals who may have lived next door or witnessed aspects of this incident. And of course, they're going to talk to the parties involved, all the officers, all the other individuals that were a part of what took place. So any parent who loves their child can only feel that same amount of, they can't imagine the kind of a loss that they're feeling. This was an individual who did everything right and ended up unnecessarily killed.
Yeah, Keith, you work specifically on this question about how policing can be better in America. Do you see any easy solutions?
Well, I can tell you that the solutions, they can be easier or harder depending on the cooperation of all the stakeholders involved to coming to common sense kinds of approaches to dealing with situations that can quickly get out of hand. And that's from just a random encounter in the street to something like a high stakes warrant execution.
All right, Keith Taylor, thank you very much.